You ever stand in a courtroom, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, holding your own house key in one hand and a water bill with your name printed clear as day in the other, and hear the bailiff announce Case 14B Cedarvale HOA versus Nolan Greer? Because let me tell you, it's a special kind of surreal. I looked down at those keys wondering if I'd somehow missed a memo that I'd moved out, and nobody bothered to tell me. Across the aisle was Beverly Stackhouse, the HOA president herself, decked out in a power blazer that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, lips pressed into this little smile, like she'd already picked out curtains for my bedroom. She cleared her throat real loud so everyone would hear and said with the kind of confidence only the truly delusional can muster that I was illegally occupying community property. Specifically, she said I'd seized the 4-bedroom house at 119 Lantern Creek. You know, the one with my name on the deed and my dog's nose smudges on the front window. The judge blinked twice, looked down at his paperwork, then back up at Beverly like maybe she'd brought the wrong case. "You mean the defendant's own home?" he asked deadpan. Beverly gave him a grin that could strip paint off a fence. "It has been temporarily reassigned to the association," she said. I almost burst out laughing right there, but honestly at this point nothing surprised me anymore. That's how it all started me. Nolan Greer, just a regular guy who codes all day and grills all night, suddenly standing in the middle of a legal circus because my HOA president decided I was some kind of squatter. Cedarvale's a nice enough place, at least on the surface. Lantern Creek is one of those cul-de-sacs where the lawns are sharp, the hedges are sharper, and nobody waves unless you're already waving first. I kept my head down coffee, at dawn jog, at dusk houseplants, all named after jazz musicians. My biggest crime was forgetting to bring in the trash cans before 9 a.m. until Beverly Stackhouse marched into my life like a one-woman parade with a clipboard and an attitude. She ran the HOA like it was the Pentagon. Every meeting had an agenda. Every email was signed. Warmly management, like we were her staff instead of homeowners paying her salary. She'd been president for 5 years, and you could tell she walked like every blade of grass was auditioning for her approval. At first, it was just suggestions. My porch light was too interrogative. My welcome mat was overly casual. I laughed, thought it was a joke until the violations started coming in like spam emails. Herb garden, unsanctioned. Mailbox, insufficient humility. Garage door, too confident. I got written up for a doorbell that was apparently too welcoming and for window blinds that lacked uniformity. $25 a pop, and I wish I was exaggerating, but I saved every last one of those letters just in case I ever needed a laugh. But Beverly, she wasn't after laughs. She escalated things faster than you can say, power trip. I got a letter labeled Occupancy Clarification, claiming the HOA could reallocate underperforming lots for amenity expansion. A week later, strangers with measuring tapes were on my lawn talking about pool annexation. I came outside, asked what was up. They showed me work orders signed by Beverly. And then, as if to rub it in one morning, I found a laminated sign zip-tied to my front door that read Temporary Common Area in bright, screaming red letters. I yanked it off, tossed it in the recycling, shook my head, but the next day it was back double zip-tied and sporting a barcode like it was official government property or something. Beverly didn't stop there. She sent an email to the entire neighborhood claiming my deed was under review due to irregularities. Suddenly, cars started creeping past my house like I was some kind of tourist attraction. I kid you not, one of my neighbors knocked and asked if their Tuesday yoga class was being moved to my living room. I cornered Beverly at the mailbox, told her to knock it off. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Trespassers shouldn't threaten the property manager." I said, "I'm the owner, not a trespasser." She just smirked and said, for the moment like she was planning my eviction in real time. Monday morning, 7 a.m. I'm standing in my kitchen sipping my coffee when I hear trucks outside. I look out. Beverly's got a tow truck and 2 guys in community integrity polos. She marches right up, tapes a notice to vacate for HOA possession next to my doorbell. The notice cited a bylaw I'd never heard of, probably because it didn't exist, and said I owed a super lien, which is not a real thing in any state I've ever lived in. The security guards tried to change my locks while I was standing right there. I pulled out my phone and started recording everything. Beverly, the guards, the fake notice. I called the non-emergency police line, and then I called Priya Kapoor, my next-door neighbor, who, as luck would have it, is a real estate attorney with a black belt in tearing up bad legal documents. Priya shows up 20 minutes later, takes one look at Beverly's notice, and laughs so hard she nearly chokes. Turns out Beverly used a small claims template for landlord evictions and actually spelled possession with 3 S's. We filed for an emergency injunction right then and there. The next 3 days, I was in full-on detective mode, digging up every scrap of paperwork I could find: deed covenants, county plat map, closing statements, mortgage docs. Priya flagged every bogus claim Beverly invented. By the end, our stack of documents was thick enough to double as a home defense weapon. Court day, Beverly struts in with a rolling suitcase of binders and this guy Ed, who looked like he'd come straight from a self-help seminar. Beverly called him a volunteer compliance officer. Ed seemed convinced that anyone who disagreed with Beverly suffered from non-compliance energy. Beverly handed over her evidence HOA minutes where she motioned and then seconded her own motions, a map of easements clearly drawn in yellow highlighter, and some document about reallocation rules printed on letterhead from Lantern Creek Management. Only problem, Lantern Creek Management was just Beverly's Gmail alias. Priya calmly gave the judge the real neighborhood covenants plus my county deed. I queued up the video on my phone. There was Beverly live on camera, instructing the security guards to change my locks, narrating the whole thing, like she was filming a nature documentary. Observe the homeowner resisting community synergy. The judge's eyebrows climbed so high I thought they'd make a break for the exit. He leaned forward, stared Beverly down, and asked her to cite the law that let an HOA evict a homeowner from their own house without a court order. Beverly, still cool as ever, says it's a spirit of governance issue. The judge goes, "Well, this courtroom uses laws, not spirits." Beverly tried emergency amenity expansion. Judge: "What's the emergency?" Beverly stone-faced. The pool needed vibes. You could have heard a pin drop, then the judge just loses it. Not a polite chuckle either. I mean full-on hands smacking the bench, head thrown back laughter. He tells the bailiff to mark the record, first time he's heard vibes used as a legal justification for eviction. Injunction granted. All notices voided. Beverly ordered to only contact me through legal counsel from now on. Priya asks for sanctions. The judge looks at my video, grins, and says he's glad she brought it up. The court hits the HOA with my attorney's fees, a $10,000 penalty for abusive practices, and refers the case to state oversight and the county prosecutor for attempted wrongful eviction and forgery. The bailiff walks over and collects Beverly's master access fob like she's a kid caught with stolen candy. Ed tries to object, but the judge cuts him off. "You're not even on the board." Ed sits down so fast you'd think his chair was electrified. State investigators dig into Cedar Vale, and what do you know, Beverly's been creating fake company names like Lantern Creek Holdings, billing the HOA for management services and basically paying herself out of our dues. Over $40,000 siphoned off in 3 years. She gets kicked off the board, fined up and down the block, and barred from ever serving on an HOA in the state again. The county prosecutor cuts a plea deal. Beverly has to pay back every last dollar, serve 2 years probation, and put in 300 hours of community service, posting real no trespassing signs at county parks. The day the judge handed down the sentence, Beverly's face cycled through every color in the crayon box. White, red, back to white, her hands gripping the table so hard I thought she'd crack it in half. She tried to protest, but nothing came out except this strangled little squeak. The bailiff had to say, "Court is adjourned," twice before she finally got up. Legs shaking, Ed shuffling along behind her like a dog who knows he's in trouble. So that's how a power-hungry HOA president tried to steal my house, got herself booted, and ended up stapling signs for community service. Funny how the mighty fall and how fast a temporary common area goes back to being my front porch. But tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you have fought back or just moved and let the circus roll on? Have you ever tangled with a Beverly in your own neighborhood? Drop your stories, your hot takes, or just a "yeah, that happened" in the comments. And if you think homeowners deserve better than HOA drama, hit subscribe, share this with a friend, and let's keep this conversation rolling, because I promise there's always another Beverly waiting just around the corner.